Hey folks, welcome back to the Expat Collective. In today's episode, I'm chatting to Kwame McPherson of Black Expats in Jamaica, an amazing group that gives so much information for folks looking to make moves back to the island. So stay tuned for this episode for lots of tips and advice, and I would love to know your thoughts. Do you have further questions? If so, please drop them below in the comments. And if you haven't had a chance to already, please click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can find out when our next interview with Caribbean Move Makers goes live. And that's it from me. Over to this week's interview. Great. Okay, so today I have Kwame on the line. Hey, Kwame, how are you doing?
Hey, Zoe, how you doing? I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm fabulous. I'm brilliant. Everything. Right?
Superb. Love it.
Yeah, well, everything.
See, I can see that you're wearing a long sleeve shirt. So despite the accent, I'm guessing that you're not in Jamaica right now.
No. And even if I was, I'd be wearing like these long shirts,
okay.
long sleeves. Yeah. But no, not at this point in time. I'm not in the. I will be eventually soon, but I'm not at the moment.
Okay, where in the world are you today?
I am in London, right in Tottenham, actually, right beside the Spurs Stadium.
Okay.
That's where I am. North London.
Nice location. And the reason I'm talking to you today is because you are involved with an amazing group called Black Expats and Repats in Jamaica. There's recently been a name change, hasn't there?
That's correct. Because it was an issue for some other people, because they're saying it's not only the expats, because you have people who are repatriating back in that regard. And I guess you could class me as that in a sense. I'm repatriating back to Jamaica. All right. In the process of. And so it was an issue that came up. So that's why the name change came about, because quite a number of people in the group are repats,
right.
And quite a number of people are repats. So that's why the name was changed.
Yeah, see, that's the thing for me in Grenada, even despite my accent, I don't consider myself an expat. Like an expat feels very other.
Yes.
Someone who's new and
Exactly. And I think when it comes to the diaspora, I think that is the thing. It's almost trying to find your place. You know what I mean? And I guess repat is better than you can't fit with expat because you're not really an expat.
Right.
You're really a repat. So in terms of diaspora, that's probably the label that is best shows where you fit.
Yeah. So tell me about you. Were you born in Jamaica? What's your story?
My story. Well, I was born in the UK, but I grew up in Jamaica. Spent a majority of my formative life there. I was growing up until a young adult. So I went back in. When did dad left with my father and my brother. My parents had divorced. Mid-70s. So and I had went to school, worked, you name it, did it in Jamaica. Came away in 85, I think it was. Came back to the UK, and that was basically because I needed to finish off my education. That's the main reason why I came back, because I didn't have enough subjects out of high school, and education throughout the entire Caribbean is important, and having the subjects is important.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the option though of coming away, so I was able to come away and come to the UK and finish my education. But funny enough, when I look back to a great extent and I look at my peer group, I can see that even if I had stayed, I'd have still been able to obtain the subjects that I needed to get where I needed to be. But it's a journey, Then everyone's journey takes a different path. But mine took me away from Jamaica, and so it happened, So I ended up coming back to the UK, ended up going to college, university, working at the same time to get what I have. And now I've basically got virtually everything that I need, really. All I have left is a doctorate, if I choose to do one, So
you're that much of a glutton for punishment. Yeah. Can you do it? Nice. But you were in Jamaica, so you never know. You could study there, right? That's always an option.
Exactly. And one thing that I'm looking at is seeing if I could get I'm looking at a program at the moment with a particular university and see if it can be done remotely. So we'll see.
Yeah. So when we were chatting beforehand, you said something which I found really interesting. You said, I'm a Jamaican, but I have a British passport. Yeah. Why do you put it like that?
Because I'm not British. I have no, even though I was here at a very young age, like I said, up to six, 7, I have no recollection of what this place is, I was at the time, and still don't. Even though, for example, because my birthday weekend, right? So my sister was talking, recalling where I was born, and what time I was born, where I was born, what the house, which I do remember. And that was interesting because I didn't know, you know what I mean? That's what is recalling all this stuff. So there's very little there. I remember the school, which was had a German headmistress back in Hornsey, I think it was. But aside from that, the memories are dark. Yeah, but so and all my memories are Jamaican memories, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting. And how common is it that people in the 70s moved back to Jamaica?
I've always said this because what had happened. Whoops, sorry. What had happened, is that many back when the Windrush generation came, and people have this perception that the Windrush generation was, they came and they did London Transport and they did NHS, which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But you also found, and many became contractors and carpenters in terms of the building, right, rebuilding of the UK and becoming a part of those industries. But you had a number of people, quite a lot of people actually, who came with a 5-year plan.
Right.
And many of them actually aspired and attained that plan. And many of them returned with their British-born children. And I think it's a story that hasn't been told because even as I'm thinking about it now, the number of Jamaicans, because they're more Jamaican than they are British. That's just like I said, they have a British passport. Who I know in Jamaica now who are British-born is unbelievable. And even those, I have friends who here now who had the same sort of experience that I had and have come back, and a number of them have settled, but a number of them have headed back. So it was quite a lot of people who attained the 5-year plan and went back with their children, But I think it's a story that hasn't been told, really. And I think that success, because there was a success of many of them to have attained that plan, done what they need to do, and headed back with their children, So it's quite a lot. I don't think it's been looked back in terms of numbers, but I know it's quite a lot because I can look at my group and I know quite a few who were born in the UK but grew up in Jamaica.
Yeah, no, and I think it definitely is a success, and it makes such an impact because for me, I know both my sets of grandparents, they came to the UK in the 50s and left by the 70s. They were done. They're like, we're not sticking around for this. We've got our money, going back home, building our houses in their 40s.
Exactly. But because you see, like I said, the perception is of the Windrush generation is that many have come and stayed.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perception, and for obvious reasons, because many have come and stayed. And and we know about the scandal surrounding that, but like I said, that's the irony, is that even though many have come and stayed, many had also left. And I think that's like a hidden story, like I said.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question that might be impossible to answer, but what impact do you feel growing up in Jamaica has had on you? And I guess it's difficult because you don't know what it would have been like to grow up in Britain, but given that you do go back and forth, how do you think it shaped you?
That's a very good question, actually. When I came back here, the first thing that hit me was obviously the culture shock. Completely different environment, a completely different way of socializing. And I came just prior to Broadwater riots, right? Broadwater Farm riots. So I couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand the dynamic or the socialization that was taking place in terms of institutionalized racism, all that kind of stuff. I had no conception because we don't have that in Jamaica. We have aspects of being biased and prejudiced, but in terms of institutionalized racism, it practically doesn't exist in the form that it exists here. So it was all new to me. And even back then, I didn't understand it. It's only when I started to interact with others who had that experience of growing up in the parents came up and the parents had to fight in order to get a foothold, in terms of trying to find accommodation, in terms of trying to find employment, and then being in the schools and on the streets. And then when you started to see that, I said, wow. So I realized then that many young people who grew up through that time didn't have a childhood. And that was a massive difference because they had to be prepared for the racism, the racism that existed within society at the time, the extreme, because it's still going on now, but the extreme of racism at that time the parents had to prepare them for that, or they had to prepare themselves for it, right?
Mm.
So it's almost like you had every day you left your home, you had to wear a body armor. Whereas in the Caribbean, growing up, you didn't have to worry about none of that. You just grew up as a young person, as a child, having fun, running up and down, enjoying your life. That struck me. You know what I mean? When I began to understand that and understand the mindset behind it and why particles things the way they were and so on and so forth, then I started to understand the dynamics of living in an environment like this. Because you don't have none of that stuff taking place in the Caribbean. You just grow up having
Yeah.
fun, like I said, as a young person. You enjoy the teenage life. Here, every young man that I met had some interaction with the police. I couldn't believe it. In Jamaica, when where I grew up, you're lucky if you saw a policeman or had problems with them. You know what I mean? So those are the things made me realize the stark differences and how young people here didn't grow up as young people. You know what I mean? They had to be prepared as adults, really. So they didn't have any young childhood, even though saying that they were able to create their own identity through love, like Robert Rock and that kind of stuff, right? So even though they were able to do that, it's still an element of it had to be fashioned from the extremities that they were living. You know what I mean? Whereas we didn't have that issue at all. So that was massive for me in terms of learning. And understanding it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess you've painted quite a clear and stark picture about what definitely wasn't working in London. But given the flip side of the opportunities, the networks, the capacity to earn more money, what was it about Jamaica that kept pulling you back? Why didn't you just stay here and be like, nah, I'm going to focus on the money, focus on the house?
And like I said, the one thing I touched on that, what you just said, and that's, like I said, the internal mindset. So for example, I came from Jamaica to further my education, right? And when I came, everything was free, right up to university. And I couldn't understand why these young people were jumping on and trying to get an education to further themselves. So, you know what I mean? I couldn't understand it. Could not understand it for the life of me. But then, like I said, when I looked on the flip side, then I saw why. But then I all the people that I came across, because I just went out and did my thing. And all of them said, oh boy, they admire me and so on and so forth. I said, yeah, but you can do it too. But they didn't prepare themselves to do the cause of the environment that they're in, right? So if you go to school and a teacher says to you, you're not good enough for this or you're not good enough, then obviously you're not going to think you're good enough to go to college or university, right? So I saw that and I jumped on it. And like I said, I was able to get myself qualified. But so when I saw and started to experience the stuff that the others experienced, that I had already made up my mind I was going to go back. I said, no matter how long it's going to take me, I'm going back home, right? And I have a friend of mine who I had met, and I think we had met in the 90s. And she always said to me, yeah, I say you go back home. Yeah, I say you go back home. I said, watch, one day I'm going to head back home. As long as I'm alive, I'm heading back home. Because I know what it can offer in terms of freedom. That for me is to a great extent, you're not here. Freedom is a fallacy in my eyes. It's not real. It's not true. They may say that you're free, but you're not. So take for example, and I'm not knocking anyone who's done this because you can buy your own property and so on and so forth. But one of the things I had learned about here in terms of purchasing property, you have to purchase an investment. I use it to create something else because you can purchase a property and you don't own the land.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I'm saying to myself, why would I do that? Why would I purchase a property and I don't own the land? Whereas in Jamaica, I buy a land and it's mine. You know what I mean? And I remember Malcolm X said it. He said, land is liberty. You know what I mean? And that for me is like, you can't, and that's what I said about freedom. It's the freedom is not real because they can come and take that away from you anytime because you don't own it. You really don't own it. So for me, and I'm fortunate enough, I do have land that was handed down to me in Jamaica. You know what I mean? That's mine. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna pay the taxes. You know, but it's mine. You know, and so that to me is the crux of it is that you're not free. You don't feel free. I personally don't feel free. I've never really settled here. My sister mom can tell you that. I've never settled. I just do what I need to do in order to get by. And like I said, I've been able to travel, the work that I've been doing, and so on and so forth. I've been able to live in other places. So so for me, it's been a blessing in terms of the journey. But I've never ever felt settled at all. Never felt settled. So that's the reason why, and that's the reason why I kept going back and forth and keeping the connection fresh. You know what I mean? Keeping the connection fresh. You know, and yeah, I'm glad I can, and that's the reason why I'm in a group like Black Expat Repat, because or BERJ, because I'm able to let other people know, because a lot of people within that group, for example, and I just get into that, they never had a connection with Jamaica, so it's a matter of telling them the nuances of being in a place like Jamaica. You know? But, so yeah, so for me, the bottom line, freedom. I want to be free.
Yeah, 100%. Me too. With you on that. Totally with you on that. Yeah. Okay, so looking at the Facebook group, it started last summer, but the growth, you've got over 1,000 members, right? Is that
the growth has been exponential in the past 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I joined in, was it February? I think it was January, February. I think I joined.
Okay.
And when I joined, there was only about 500 people in it.
Yeah.
I was like, and then it's over a couple of months, and it blew up. You know, it blew up. There's over 1,000 people now. I said, wow. So and like I said, because of I've lived in, like I said, both places, and I've lived in Jamaica, so I know the nuances of being in Jamaica, especially as somebody who's not familiar with Jamaica or hasn't been back for quite a while. I'm able to let them understand and know certain things and nuances. So I share part of expertise, because I know a lot of people in Jamaica, obviously, and right across the board. So that has enabled me to become, I was invited to become one of the admin, and I've been able to share my experience and my expertise in that regard, you know. It's a great group, without a doubt. It's going to be a foremost lobby group.
Okay.
Yeah, I see. We're positioning ourselves to become, I guess they probably wouldn't want what to say about, but anyway, we're positioning ourselves to be a lobby group, because there's another organization, I was going to call no names, right, which has been around for a while, but everything is changing. The dynamics is changing in terms of the demographic of the person or the other person looking to return or to migrate, wherever it is, whether it's the motherland or to the Caribbean, it's changing.
Yeah.
The pandemic exacerbated that. So you now find that people are starting to realize and understand that the fundamentals in life, like I said, in terms of freedom, is something which they want. So, for example, quite a number of people in the group are from the States.
Yeah.
Now, majority of them are seeking to leave because they just can't deal with the tension around race. They just want to be free. Jamaica offers something like that. Like I said, there's other parts, and you could even say that it's our countries, whether it's the Caribbean or the motherland, in Africa. And we are free in these places, really. So the group offers the expertise in that. And like I said, there's one other particular group, that an organization been around for years in Jamaica in particular, which cater to return residents. Now the problem is, it's not, in my mind, it hasn't been proactive enough in terms of enabling returnees to return safely,
right?
As well as enabling them to assimilate. So in my opinion, I believe it's failed in that regard, because take, for example, about 3-4 years ago, over a period of time, there are a number of returning residents who have been murdered in Jamaica. Big news, you know what I mean? Big news. And I felt at the time, and someone had pointed out to me, that I should go and start my own organization, because I felt that the organization wasn't doing enough. It wasn't proactive enough. So it only waited until something happened to a returning resident, then it started to make up a lot of noise. You know what I mean? So, we should get specialized policing for residents who are returning, and why are they being targeted, and so on and so forth. But I said, what should have really happened at that time, and what we're doing now, is you educate people who are returning. Let them understand the do's and don'ts, the fullness of moving back into a particular area, building a big house in this area, so which will enable you to be targeted, and not shying away from the fact that people will see you and think you have money, basically. You know, they'll be envious. You know, you've been away, you come back, you're not the same person who went away. You're the same person who went away and when you came back, because as soon as you step off the island, you're somebody different. You know what I mean? People are going to view you differently. They're going to think you have money. But so you don't create something in a place where people are going to be envious. You have to watch associations around you. You have to watch associations of associations. So these are the dynamics which the other organizations didn't teach returning residents. So in my mind, I was saying that the reason why a number of returning residents are being targeted and being murdered is because they weren't educated enough to have a service which would then enable them to assimilate and integrate simpler, where they wouldn't have to interact with particular elements. Because when you check around these people, you realize that it's people that they knew or know who it wasn't a majority of it wasn't random. It mean targeted, which was true. Majority of it was targeted. A lot of it was targeted. So, but in saying that, you do have that type of resident, and I'm going to break it down even further, who have assimilated quite comfortably. They're living in enclaves of returning residents, other returning residents, and so on and so forth. And the reason why that particular organization is going to become obsolete is because it catered to a particular demographic. And that demographic is the Windrush generation, for example. And that generation is either passing on, or they've moved already, or they're not going anywhere. There's a new generation of returnees. And these are, like, they're not baby boomers anymore. They're generation X's and sevens and millennials, that kind of thing. So they're much younger. So the movement now is much easier for them because they can assimilate easier. They were able to educate and to teach and show them how to integrate. And that's where our focus is in regards to diasporans, really, rather than the Windrush generation, which, like I said, have to a great extent. I think they were failed, in my mind. I really do. I really feel they were failed. And we are trying to make sure that doesn't happen as best as we can in terms of what we're doing as a group, right? So we're going to become a focal loving group, I believe. We're moving towards, and the power of that, the reason why we can become a loving group is, take for example, like I said, we're talking about every single person within the group who is either returned or in the process of returning. Every single person has a particular net value or net worth. So that only adds to the group's net value. So one of the things we had looked at is that, okay, we have this net value of X amount of millions. We can go to any corporation and say, listen, you don't provide a particular service, not only for us, but for local people too. We're going to take our money and go elsewhere. That's how we can become. And I've always said that in order for things to change in countries like Jamaica or any other developing country or within the Caribbean or Africa, is that it has to have the diaspora return in numbers. Because once you return in numbers, you have the net worth and net value behind you. You can virtually ensure that there's change that needs to happen within that space or within that environment. And that's what we're looking to do in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Step by step.
You know what, when I started this, I had like a real mission, like Jamaica runs everything. I don't want Jamaica to dominate there too much. There's other parts of the Caribbean, blah, blah, blah. But interacting with you guys, I just see why you lead, like the organization, the passion, the drive. It's so inspiring and it makes so much sense. It really, really does. So
I'm telling you.
To use that as a model for other islands, how amazing would that be?
Exactly. And my vision had, like I said, because I've always said, honestly, this is how the universe works, I said, it's true, I really do need to create an organization which enables that. And now, funny enough, this one fell in my lap in a sense. And I said, wow, look at that. There's a plan I had in my head. My best friend can tell you, years ago, we sat down and talked about it, years ago. But now we have something, I have something now which is real. I can say, all right, organize ourselves in such a way, like I said, we can go. We have corporation meetings coming up with corporate companies. Our meetings with corporations coming up, where we're going to say, listen, this is the provision that we're looking for. What can you do for us? And if they can't step up, so we're going to go elsewhere. So we're creating, so like I said, and if this template, it won't be, not if it be successful, it will be successful because, like I said, the net worth value of the group alone of 1,000 members, come on. Nobody's going to turn up their nose to that. When it comes to foreign exchange, okay, throw the Caribbean, throw the entire Caribbean or elsewhere, So, yeah, man, it'd be powerful. And I'm always an advocate for us to return because that's when we'll be really free, And we can use that freedom, like I said, to create the life that we want and the lifestyle that we want, So I'm passionate about that. Right across the diaspora, right across our homelands. I'm really passionate about that. You know, I'm not in the talking team. You know? I'm a doing person. I pick up people invite me to parties because I'm not talking. We need to stop talking now and start doing. You know, so I try to lead it by example where that's concerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then in terms of the group, what are the most common issues or concerns that people are looking to move have?
One, crime. You know, there's a lot of about crime. Oh, my battery's going now. Damn. Where did it go? Yeah, it's an issue about crime. A lot of people are concerned about crime, mainly, and then just being safe. Really, a lot of the time that's the bottom line. And then obviously it's about employment or how they're gonna live in terms of making any money. Those are the things that really concern people. Location, but the main thing that a lot of people are concerned about is around crime.
Yeah.
And in answer to that, I've always said one of the biggest things I believe is association. Is who you associate with. If you don't associate with particular people, then you won't get mixed up in particular things. I'm not going to say random crime doesn't happen. So especially in the urban areas, you have to be aware. You have to be alert to a great extent. You can't move around as freely as you'd like because you have to be just aware around of the space that you're in. You have to be aware of the environment that you're in terms of, you know, you're not in the same environment that you're in terms of being in the West, especially in urban areas. And I was trying to advise people that they just be alert. Outside of the urban areas, you virtually are more or less like crime free, depending on which parishes you are in. You know, because there's particular parishes that have hotspots for crime. But so those are the things. And again, like I said, like I touched on before, in terms of all the returning residents, what they used to do, which the younger ones aren't doing, is they used to build massive mansions. You know. So, because they expect the children to come back and come late and all that kind of stuff. And so they used to build these big homes. And in the end, and these big homes tend to be in areas where they grew up in, you know, so they're familiar with a particular district. And then, like I said, when you go back to a particular district, it's still poor as how you left it, probably even poorer. And people look at you as some sort of savior. So that will also bring its own tensions. But in saying that, there's places you can still go where you won't have that problem, you know, because people look out for you more so. So again, it depends on, you have to feel out the area, feel out particular people, vet them, you know, and get to understand and how to keep safe, you know. Like I said, fortunately for me, I have my own peer group. I have a peer group. So I'm fortunate in terms of the circle that I move in. So, but it's one of the main things I always say to people, the circles that you move in is important, very important, and how you interact and how you assimilate, you know. So
I'm glad you've addressed that, because since doing this question has come up about, but Jamaica, is it safe? And I don't want to talk trash about anyone else's island, and I don't even want to raise the safety issue. So I'm glad that you've addressed it.
It is safe. And like I said, I'm gonna cut you, sorry to cut you, but there's people in the group who've never been to Jamaica in terms of have a connection with Jamaica. I have a show actually that I do every month around. It's called Reasoning, where we talk to people who are returning residents and they share their experiences. And as you've seen, a number of people in the group are straight African American, straight. Majority of them are. Don't have no connection to the Caribbean, much less Jamaica, right? And they've gone back and they will tell you, they're safe. There's a woman out in the grill by the name of Mr. Memphis.
Okay.
And beautiful lady, African American, now retired. She lives in the grill. They call her the unappointed ambassador from the grill. Serious, because she would tell you she had no connection to to Jamaica, but she would tell you she's in the grill, and she her experiences, and she lets everyone know. I said, listen, it is safe, and I really do think so. I think that, like I said, the crime focus and concentration in particular areas, and in the urban areas and mainly. And when I say urban areas, I mean I'm to the Kingston, maybe around Ochi. Yeah, but it's gonna die, you know. Damn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Let me
Let's wrap up, because that's really useful advice. So lastly, what advice would you give to someone, on the fence about moving to Jamaica. Maybe they've got a family, or maybe they're like, oh, should I get out of the UK or should I get out of the US? What advice would you give from your experience?
I would say, first, I would say do your recon. Go and have a reconnaissance, check it out. Have the opportunity, if you can have the opportunity to go to different places or stay in different places, to see what it's like. You know what I mean? If you're able to do an Airbnb, spend a couple of nights somewhere, you know what I mean, around in the island in that regard. Be aware of, I always say to people, just be aware of your family, because families can tend to be the unsafe ones. You know, if you let family know your business, there can be, that I always say to people, if you can trust your family, you know you can trust your family, fine. You know what I mean? If they come and they stress you out and beg you for this or beg you for that, then okay, you know what I mean? But be aware. Use the resources that are available, for example, like Black Expats, Repats in Jamaica. Use that type of resource if it's on Facebook. There are other resources out there in terms of other groups on Facebook actually that I do know of. And always try to, and I would also say, have an open mind. Don't carry your thought processes of particular things happening in the West back to the Caribbean or to Jamaica or anywhere else, because it's completely different. Have an open mind. So, for example, if you think going into the bank and say a long line, be patient. Because you'll be in the bank for like an hour or two. And that's just the way it is. Don't try to bring your way of thinking of how things are done somewhere else. No, not gonna work. You know, I would say that. Be open-minded and create the right associations. You know, have the right circle of people around you in terms of advice, helping with assimilating and that kind of thing. So those are the things I say. Recon, be aware of who you have around you, having particular groups and who have the particular expertise, and have an open mind, you know, and have a very open mind and within an open-mindedness, it's just about being patient, you know, because you'll find that when you are, then you'll start to see the true freedom and enjoy, you know, because there's a lot to see and a lot to do, and I'll find, for me, particularly, I guess you'll find it too, is that I'm at peace, you know. I'm really at peace. If I take a drive to the countryside and see how green the places and the fresh air, and go somewhere and see fresh fruit being sold on the side of the street and that kind of stuff, I'm loving it. You know, I'm loving that freedom of enjoying that. Those are the simple things that I enjoy. You know, and then that's when you realize, yeah, you know what? Yeah, this is what life is all about. You know, so that's what I would say.
Definitely. You sold it so perfectly. Kwame, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So much wisdom, and I can't wait to see what happens next with this lobby group. It sounds amazing.
It is. It will be. Trust me, it will be. The things that I see we're going to accomplish is going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So, you know, so thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.